Hi guys, Harry here, and the last couple of videos on my channel have been a bit negative, and I want this channel to be about positivity, and I want to be positive when I talk about this stuff. So, in this video, I'm going to be talking about something a little bit different. I'm going to be going over my review of the new Spider-Man movie. But before we get into that, don't forget to subscribe, also leave a like and comment down below, and let's get into the video. So, of course, spoiler warning for Spider-Man Brand New Day, because I'm going to be talking about all of it, and I will get into the plot elements. So so this is your spoiler warning. If you haven't watched it yet, go watch it, then come back to this video. So, Spider-Man Brand New Day the main events follow on 4 years after the events of Spider-Man No Way Home, where Peter Parker is basically no more and Spider-Man is his only identity. And we see this very early on in the film. There's a montage in the 4 years between the events of the end of No Way Home and the start of the events of Brand New Day, where Spider-Man tackles villains like Tarantula, Boomerang, The Hand, Scorpion, and Tombstone as well. And is sort of setting us early into the movie that Spider-Man is what Peter is prioritising instead of being, well, Peter Parker. And first off, it is great to have Scorpion back. The stinger, pun intended, that we had at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming, when Scorpion says that he wants to find Peter Parker, well, find Spider-Man, and it took 9 years for that to happen. Unfortunately, he only has 2 scenes where he gets his ass handed to him by Spider-Man in kind of pathetic fashion for him. 9 years just to see him beaten up pretty quickly twice. So maybe, hopefully, in the next couple of Spider-Man films, he returns maybe as a bit of a bigger threat. But in this movie, we don't really have a big, main, traditional Spider-Man villain. So it is still nice to see Scorpion. But one of the reasons that Scorpion loses the second fight against Spider-Man was something that was heavily focused on in the trailer. Well, for 2 reasons. One, Spider-Man is going through this kind of change where he's getting more arachnid DNA in him, and it's overwhelming his human levels of DNA, and he's becoming more Spider-Man-like. He's getting organic webbing, he has more, his strength has grown, he has enhanced reflexes as well. So when he is going through this against Scorpion, Scorpion is of course completely unprepared for him. And the other reason is that he's not exactly Scorpion, because the main villain of this Spider-Man movie is technically actually Jean Grey. Yes, Sadie Sink's character is Jean Grey, probably the worst kept secret in any movie release, that this character is playing a mystery character, but everyone had assumed she was gonna be Jean Grey, and she was actually Jean Grey. So, of course, Jean Grey is trying to fight Spider-Man through someone that she's never fought with that style before, especially with Scorpion having a massive scorpion tail. But, of course, with those 2, kind of handicaps for Scorpion, he loses he loses quite badly to Spider-Man, with Spider-Man, because of his arachnid DNA, actually injuring a cop almost fatally. And Spider-Man needs to sort of discover how to join with this DNA and how they can harmonise together his human and arachnid DNA. However, Spider-Man doesn't want to do that, and even though he is insanely focused on just being Spider-Man, he doesn't want the arachnid DNA building up over his human levels because he can't handle it. However, probably his lifestyle of just being Spider-Man has made this arachnid build-up happen, because he is neglecting every friendship to do with Peter Parker. I mean, of course, he has no Ned and MJ to be friends with anymore, or any of the other Avengers that knew he was Spider-Man, well, that knew he was Peter Parker when he was helping them as Spider-Man. And even just new relationships, he is not open to them either, because when he enters where his flat is, his apartment, a girl tries to start a friendly conversation with him. However, he just almost completely ignores her, so he is shutting down every relationship, friendship whatsoever. He is just focused on being Spider-Man. And this even happens with people that he is working with in an official capacity as Spider-Man, because Detective DeWolf is one of the people he teams up with in this movie, and she calls him out saying that they don't have a relationship, as she doesn't know any personal information about him, and he doesn't know any personal information about her. Of course, eventually at the end, with him knowing some personal information about her, once he ends up opening up to people, so they can become kind of more friendly. But at the start, he is neglecting every part of a relationship, even when he is just being Spider-Man. And this is seen quite prevalently in the cameos of this movie, because there are quite a few cameos, quite a few Avengers cameos, like Spider-Man always has in his movies. Because, first up, let's talk about Yelena, probably my favourite post-Endgame character. Yelena, of course, seems to be the head of the New Avengers now, as seen in the Thunderbolts or New Avengers movie. And it's just a funny scene where Yelena's office is like this bathhouse area, and it's just so funny that her and Spider-Man are like in this like hot tub bath area, and Spider-Man still has his Spider-Man mask on, so because he doesn't want anyone to know his identity. And yeah, Yelena just steals the show as always, but she also points out to him that he is neglecting relationships, and when she sees him with Ned and MJ, she is glad that he is getting some friends. And this actually carries on to the next couple of Avengers cameos, because let's talk about Bruce Banner, yes, the Hulk. The Hulk finally returns in this movie. We get all three of his identities, Bruce Banner, Professor Hulk, and Savage Hulk as well. And it has been a long-awaited return for Savage Hulk, because the last time we saw him was 9 years ago in Thor Ragnarok, that is a long time ago that we haven't seen a OG Avengers member, Savage Hulk, but he does get his return. Again, a bit like Scorpion, he is a bit underutilized and not in the movie a lot, for only like 5 minutes, barely longer than Scorpion, but it's still good to see him back, and hopefully we will see Savage Hulk in the next two Avengers movie, where he can actually win a fight, because he hasn't won a fight on his own, really, since Avengers Age of Ultron. But actually, even Hulk helps out with forming relationships for Spider-Man, because in a moment where Hulk has Spider-Man pinned, Spider-Man reveals that he is Peter, and this sort of like calms Hulk. Maybe Hulk is remembering that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and maybe Hulk still has those memories because he was repressed under under Professor Hulk, so Banner's mind, when the spell was cast by Doctor Strange in No Way Home. So maybe at least Hulk will remember that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and that can be another relationship formed for either Avengers Doomsday or Avengers Secret Wars whenever Spider-Man returns. But the main cameo I want to talk about is the Punisher. Yes, Frank Castle returns for the MCU since Daredevil Born Again Season 1, and Jon Bernthal is just amazing as Frank Castle, the Punisher. I didn't expect him to be in the movie this much, but he is just so funny. It's such like a big brother, little brother relationship between him and Spider-Man. And I think he thinks he likes Spider-Man, even though there's kind of a a rivalry between them, and they're always bickering, and he doesn't like how Spider-Man brings it up how he saved him in Staten Island, how he needed Spider-Man's help. But I think Frank knows that Peter is a good kid, especially when he sees Peter's face at the end of the movie. And Peter is just, he thinks he lost his family, but he can maybe do right by this kid. And yeah, they have a really close relationship. And even though the Punisher is, of course, still the Punisher, still has swearing, violence, and just everything else that makes the Punisher, he is a little bit toned down, of course, for a Spider-Man movie, but it's still amazing to see how he still is the Punisher, still has violence, still is a really bad guy when you think about it. But it is amazing to see him. But one new character that, of course, I have to talk about is Sadie Sink's Jean Grey. Because Sadie Sink's Jean Grey is a different take than any Jean Grey we've seen previously on screen. She's a younger, more down-on-her-luck Jean Grey who was actually abandoned by her mother when her powers started to form, and she only had her sister for company. However, one day, the Department of Damage Control took her sister, and her sister actually jumped into her body, because that's her power. They can jump into other people's bodies and control them, and made her run away, so that when Jean finally regained control of her body, when she went back to find her sister was gone and taken away by the Department of Damage Control. So now she is seeking revenge on Damage Control. However, I think she goes off the deep end a bit too much, because she realises that Spider-Man isn't affected by her body jumping, by her mind control. But, of course, she tries to have other people stop him. However, she goes off the deep end a bit too much. I mean, she makes an innocent person step out in front of a bus, I think. So she's already killed someone. She almost kills MJ by making her jump off a roof when she was possessing her. And she also kisses Spider-Man as MJ when Peter thinks that MJ herself is remembering him. But actually, the spell from No Way Home sticks with MJ, and MJ reveals later in the movie after that she has no memory of Peter Parker, and they can't be in a relationship because she doesn't know him, which I think is a great choice to stick with the No Way Home spell in this movie as well. But yes, Jean Grey is really horrible to particularly Spider-Man in this movie, and I think if she had just said, can you help me? My sister has been taken by Damage Control and possibly even killed, I'm sure Spider-Man would have helped. I mean, he knows how bad the DODC can be, as seen in Spider-Man No Way Home, when they were ruthlessly questioning him and his close friends and family. So I'm sure that he would at least hear her out and help her. But no, she decides to go off the deep end, with the DODC accidentally unlocking her full Omega level powers, meaning that she can actually jump into Peter Parker's mind now. And a lot of people have said, well, how come this turned her around into a good guy after she had possessed the Hulk and Frank Castle's mind, when they have obviously been through a lot more stuff than her? And you're overlooking the point. She wasn't impressed by Peter Parker's darkness, saying, oh, he's been through similar stuff as me, like I can relate to him. No, it was Aunt May, a vision of Aunt May that Spider-Man had after she discovered his secret just after Spider-Man Homecoming, which convinces her that she is not alone, that she is special, and that if she looks for it, she can find help. And I just think that's a beautiful message for everyone watching this movie, because Spider-Man Brand New Day, for me at least, is the most relatable movie. Because for me, in like my mid-early 20s, yeah, I've lost contact with people, and I'm not as close with as many people as I used to be. However, I have reconnected with people, I still have a good relationship with my family, and if you think about it, if you're not in the same situation, they're just a phone call away. It's easier now more than ever to reconnect with people. And this is what Peter Parker has to kind of work to do in this movie. However, of course, tragedy strikes. Because Frank Castle, in order to stop Jean from possessing, she has like half of Manhattan under her control, shoots her, but Spider-Man hears it coming with his Spidey sense and steps in the way and takes the bullet for her. And this really convinces Jean Grey that she has someone and she is truly loved. And using her Omega-level powers keeps him alive for the surgeons to be able to do what they do and save his life. And we get a funny scene of Peter getting out of the hospital because Frank says, I have a way for you to get out of the hospital with no one seeing you. And he can't just put on his Spider-Man costume because the main part of the suit, the body, was ripped up, of course, when they were saving him. And as Peter exits out of the hospital, Frank is in the window with the Spider-Man mask on and the Spider-Man arms, and he's waving in the air and he's like grunting, and it's just so funny. That is like one of the funniest Frank scenes in the movie, and it shows that he really does care for Peter Parker. And there is a little scene of a kid that does like the Spider-Man like web shoot wrist thing to Peter. And a lot of people saying this could be Jean Grey, this just could be a kid just doing that. But what I like to think is this kid knows that maybe, well, not knows, but suspects he could be Spider-Man. A lot like how the kid noticed Steve Rogers was Captain America in the movie Captain America the Winter Soldier, where the little kid noticed that Captain America was there. And it was just a sweet moment between the two of them. And I think this is kind of like a reference to that moment. But, of course, that isn't it. Because at the end of the movie, when Peter has finally decided to reconnect with people, he has a relationship with the Punisher, kind of with Jean Grey, kind of with the Hulk as well, and with Detective DeWolf, that Peter Parker sees Ned and decides to reconnect with him. And they do their handshake from the movies that they've seen before. And Ned has a bit of a realisation and calls him Peter. And there's enough for it to go either way. If you don't want the spell to be broken, there's enough for it to know. Because MJ called Spider-Man Peter when he was at their flat, when they reconnected before. Also, muscle memory isn't the same thing as just remembering someone. You can do that and not know them. And also, he's seen Peter before anyway at the party. And they had a little social gathering where Peter showed up not as Spider-Man. So you could go down that way, or you could go the route that they've done the handshake. Ned must know him. Ned calls him Peter. Ned has like his look is like of remembrance. And also, Ned is a sorcerer as well, as seen in Spider-Man No Way Home. He has some magical ability. So maybe that magical ability made him break through Doctor Strange's magic, especially as he had a close relationship with Peter. So, will Peter and Ned be friends the next time we see them? Well, I think you can go either way with that, depending on just what you want. But I think it would be nice if Ned remembers him. But with all of that out the way, this was one of the peak MCU movies. I think the best movie since Avengers Endgame. Best MCU movie since Avengers Endgame. And I think I will give Spider-Man Brand New Day a 9.5 out of 10. Because the MCU, it depends on the next two Avengers movies. But it might be back. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Did you like Spider-Man Brand New Day? What would you give it a score out of 10? Did you like it? Did you not? As I said, let me know down in the comments below. Also, if you like this video, don't forget to leave a like, also subscribe, and share it out. And I will see you in the next one.